Hey there, Jim Kitty here. Hey, today I'm going to do something different. Normally, Jim Kitty sits on the other side of the camera, and I'm in my office and do my recordings there. But since today is such a beautiful day, and I needed to take a drive anyway, I thought I would bring along my camera and actually on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, traveling eastbound from the western Pennsylvania area over in the direction towards Philadelphia. So I just thought it was a perfect day to do that, and there's something really important that I wanted to talk about, and I just thought that this would be a great opportunity to do that and allow you to see the beautiful fall scenery here in Pennsylvania. Again, I'm on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I'm currently sitting at a rest stop in Somerset, Pennsylvania. And if you're not familiar with Somerset, Somerset is actually a community that is right beside or very close to Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And of course, we all know that that's where Flight 93 went down on 9/11. Actually, about 15 years ago to the day, plus 10 days or so. So I guess it's an appropriate conversation. What I really wanted to talk with you about was the election. So if you happen to be watching this video after the November 8th election, it's still relevant content, but basically I want to talk about who Jim Kitty has decided to vote for and why I've made that decision. And it's been a difficult one because, to be quite honest with you, I have struggled with this decision, and for the longest period of time I had pretty much concluded that I will vote for Hillary Clinton. But I will tell you that just over the last few days, and it's been pretty much building up with me, I've changed my mind and I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. So I want to share with you exactly why I made this change of heart and why I think it's the right decision at this point. So first, let's talk a little bit about why I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. First of all, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm independent, and I've really voted in the past for both Democrats and for Republicans. I believe that it's always most important to vote for the person that you think is really going to make a difference and be the better president. Like I say, I had struggled with the decision and had concluded that I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. To be quite honest with you, I really have been very disappointed that the two candidates that we have to pick from is Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I think there's so many other candidates that would be better suited to be the president of the United States. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and we need to pick the best person for the job at this point. The reason that I pretty much concluded that I was not going to vote for Donald Trump was one of the things that, I've always disliked being around people that thought too much of themselves or they were egotistical. And I think you would agree that Donald Trump falls into that category. So there are a lot of other negative things with Donald Trump. Of course, there's a lot of negative things with Hillary Clinton also. But the one that really was pushing me away from Donald Trump was just simply the fact that it seemed like the most important person in the world to him was Donald Trump, and he just thinks too much of himself. Now recently, as I say, I've had a change of heart and have decided to vote for Donald Trump and not for Hillary Clinton. And let me tell you the reason for that. And it really comes down to me being almost pissed off that the current administration is pulling a fast one on us. And I mean, it's almost like they think we're stupid. There are so many things that have happened over the last couple months that it's so obvious that the current administration, the Obama administration, has facilitated a number of these things with the sole purpose of getting Hillary Clinton to be elected. So it's just got me to the point where I'm tired of them believing that the American public is stupid and falling for their silly tricks. And enough is enough. I cannot vote for Hillary Clinton because I feel at this point that if I were to do that and she were to become the president, then the game that they've played on us will have been successful, and that would be very disappointing. So let me tell you what the game has been from my perspective. There's really 5 different pieces to the puzzle that I want to talk about that I think were all contrived, and President Obama was part and parcel in the planning of and execution of these 5 items that it'll be many, many, many years from now before we discover the truth. But this is really the primary conversation that I want to have with you today, and I want to talk about these 5 things. And if you're currently thinking that you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, I want you to stay with me during this conversation. I want to talk about these 5 things, and I really think that when you evaluate each of these items, as I've done, I think you'll come to the conclusion that you're being gamed also, and I would hope that you don't fall for the tricks that they're playing on us. So let me talk quickly about the 5 items that I'm addressing here. The first item is the Loretta Lynch Bill Clinton meeting. And let me just go through the 5 items first, and then I'll come back and talk about each one in a little bit more detail. So number 1 is the Loretta Lynch meeting with Bill Clinton. Number 2 is the 33,000 emails that Hillary Clinton's staff used bleach bit on to delete. Number 3 is the fact that the FBI came out and basically told us that Hillary Clinton is guilty of having classified information on her private server that was in her basement, but they're not going to recommend charges to the Department of Justice. And their reason was because they don't believe any prosecutor would take the case. So that's number 3. Number 4 is a topic related to a computer hacker by the name of Grucifer, and he was in a Romanian jail, and I believe it was in the April timeframe. The FBI extradited him from Romania and brought him back to the United States. I'll talk about that in a second. And the number 5 item is that just a couple days ago, the Department of Justice dropped a case that was against a guy by the name of Turi, T-U-R-I. He was a big gun runner. And so that's the 5th item, and I'll come back to talking about that here in 1 second. I do want to point out to the fact that I'm getting ready to go through one of the tunnels that's on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This one's up at the top of Somerset. And anyone that's ever fearful of driving the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I do want to show you that you do go through tunnels, but it's not a big deal. This one's called the Allegheny Mountain Tunnel, and all of the tunnels on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I think there's a total of 4 of them now. There used to be a lot more, but they're all well lit, wide tunnels, and nothing to be fearful of. Just maintain your speed. Sometimes people will slow down significantly as they go through the tunnel, but if you're in the left-hand lane, typically you can just maintain your same speed, and it won't be a problem. So this particular tunnel is just a one-leg tunnel. There's another tunnel on the Pennsylvania Turnpike that's about 75 miles further east. That's a double tunnel. You come out of the tunnel. I think it's called the Blue Mountain Tunnel. You come out of one tunnel, and about 50 yards later, you go into another tunnel. And of course, that's the reason for that is this area of Pennsylvania is relatively mountainous and hilly, so they needed to have some tunnels when they built the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Pennsylvania Turnpike is actually just a little bit of history. I believe it's the first toll road in the country, and it runs 300 some miles from western Pennsylvania, actually from the border of Ohio, all the way to New Jersey. So people use it primarily traveling between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. It is a toll road. If you go the entire distance, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 or $30. It's been a long time since I've paid attention to the actual amounts, since I have E-ZPass, and they automatically get placed on my E-ZPass account. So, okay, so we've made it through the tunnel, and at this point we're headed towards the next exit, or next town we come to is a place called Bedford, Pennsylvania. And staying with the history theme, you may have heard Bedford is kind of a famous town. I believe George Washington stayed there on a couple of occasions. But at any rate, So our next exit will be Bedford. I won't be getting off at that exit, but getting back to the topic, the 5 items that I just gave you that kind of pushed me and convinced me that they just think we're stupid and we're not going to catch on to their games. And I think when you look at these 5 items collectively, you figure it out in that they're just stacking the deck to the point where they are doing everything they need to do to get Hillary Clinton elected as president. And of course, President Obama has the interest in continuing his legacy with Hillary, since they say Hillary is just a continuation of Obama. But at any rate, back to the 5 items. So the first item was the Loretta Lynch Bill Clinton meeting. So if you recall, when the FBI started to look into the email scandal, and they apparently had like over 100 FBI agents that were seriously pursuing interest in understanding how she used her private server and was there any classified information. So during that period of time, like in the April to June time frame, there was an active investigation going on. So what happened with this Loretta Lynch Bill Clinton meeting was, mysteriously, for some odd reason, they just happened to run into each other at the Phoenix airport. Bill Clinton got off his airplane and walked over and got onto a Department of Justice airplane that Loretta Lynch was on. Of course, Loretta Lynch is the head of the Department of Justice. And if you're not aware, Department of Justice is one of the agencies within DOJ is the FBI. So basically, Loretta Lynch is the boss of the FBI. So, and of course, if the FBI is currently investigating Hillary Clinton, you would not expect that Bill Clinton would have a private meeting with Loretta Lynch. That's basically a conflict of interest, and you're not allowed to do that. So he got caught doing that. Apparently there was some media that at the Phoenix airport that caught on to it, and they didn't actually record it or film it, but they proved that this actually happened. So of course, within a couple days after that, I believe Bill Clinton said that was probably a mistake on his part, probably shouldn't have done that, but we were just talking about our grandchildren, was basically his excuse. And of course, Loretta Lynch came out a few days after that also, and she also made a statement that basically said that's something that she should not have allowed to happen. And as a result of it happening, she was going to give the final decision on that the FBI, related to their investigation of Hillary Clinton's server, she was going to basically give the final decision to the FBI, so that the DOJ was no longer going to be the final stopping point to make a decision on whether to indict Hillary Clinton if the FBI found that she did break some laws related to the classified information. So it's certainly a little bit suspicious, and what I personally believe happened was that was part of a game plan, that somehow they needed to come up with a way to get the Loretta Lynch out of the mix when it comes to making a final decision, because they at this point they knew that what the FBI had found was stacking up and looking like it was going to be an indictment. So what happens when the FBI recommends an indictment, they basically pass it up to DOJ and they say, okay, well, based on the evidence and the facts that we've discovered, we believe that she should be indicted, Hillary Clinton should be indicted for the following reasons. And then it's up to the DOJ to actually take that recommendation and move forward with an indictment, which would eventually end up in a law or in a lawsuit and in a trial, where there potentially would have been a trial that would have taken place. And then, of course, if that were to happen, all of the documents that the FBI found during their discovery would have to be shared with the defense, and eventually would be made public record. So that's one of the things that I believe the content of the documents that the FBI discovered on her server were of such a level of importance that they couldn't possibly allow those documents to be shared not only with the general public, but to allow foreign governments to also have access or have knowledge of the content of the emails that were on her server. Now, the FBI did come out and they said she definitely had classified documents and emails on her server that she sent and received. I think there were 110 emails that fell into that category. And the director of the FBI said that Hillary Clinton was extremely careless in her activities associated with these emails. But at the same time, he said he would not recommend prosecution. That's the number one thing that I want to talk about. The number two thing was the BleachBit activity. So Jim Kitty has been in the IT world for many years, and I can tell you that I have never ever heard of anyone using BleachBit to delete emails from your server. So it's been proven, and the FBI basically told us this, that in fact that's exactly what happened. In that during the investigation, the people that were running her server decided, for whatever reason, to make sure that those emails could never be discovered by the FBI. So they used a product called BleachBit, which is more than just deleting emails. It's physically wiping the disk content so that it could not be recovered by the FBI. So that's the number two thing. They use BleachBit. So that's basically destruction of evidence. And if you've ever watched any criminal prosecutions, when people destroy evidence, that's basically admission of guilt. So keep that in mind as we talk about the rest of these items. So number three on my list was, actually, I guess I've really already talked about number 3 during that prior conversation, in the fact that the FBI basically said that she was guilty, but they're not going to prosecute her. And since the DOJ had stepped aside as a result of this chance meeting with Bill Clinton, then it was the FBI, the director of the FBI, that made the final decision. Well, okay, yes, she did a lot of things that she should be prosecuted for, but we're not going to prosecute her, and that's the end of the investigation, end of any potential prosecution, and so on and so forth. So that was number 3. Number 4 is, as I said before, a guy by the name of Grucifer, who's a Romanian hacker. So this guy, and this happened in the April time frame. This guy was sitting in jail in Romania, and the FBI learned about him because he had basically said, well, I've hacked into many U.S. government computers, including Hillary Clinton's computer. So, of course, this was of interest to the FBI, and the FBI decided to convince Romania to let us extradite him to the United States so that the FBI could interrogate him. So they actually did that, and I believe it was sometime in the April time frame. They brought him over, and they gave him immunity. So when somebody gets immunity, basically that's saying, okay, you can tell us everything you know, and we're not going to prosecute you for anything that you did wrong, but we want you to be truthful and tell us everything that you know related to hacking into Hillary's email server. So this is a process that apparently took place over a few week period, and it kind of dropped out of the news a lot. Grucifer was in a jail somewhere in Virginia or in the D.C. area while the FBI interrogated him. But there wasn't much in the news media about what the FBI's findings were. Eventually, we learned that the FBI had concluded that Grucifer lied. Now, this is what the FBI says, and the director of the FBI said that during a congressional hearing after he made the July 5th announcement that, yeah, Hillary Clinton basically is kind of guilty, but we're not going to prosecute him. 2 days later, he had to go to the Hill and testify in front of Congress related to this whole subject matter. And the question was presented to him as like, well, what's the deal with Grucifer? Well, the director basically says, well, Grucifer lied. He really didn't access Hillary's server. So if you believe that, fine. I personally don't believe that that's a true statement. They left him off the hook after they had determined that, it's my belief that they determined that he actually did hack into her server, and he was able to retrieve sensitive information and classified emails. So that's number 4. The 5th item, and this is kind of like the last straw with me, that just happened recently. I think it happened a couple days ago. The Department of Justice was pursuing. They had apparently arrested, and they were in the process of prosecuting a guy by the name of Turi, T-U-R-I, that was a gun runner in Libya. And the DOJ needed to make a decision a couple days ago whether they were going to go forward with his prosecution. And they made the decision to drop the case against Turi. So there's absolutely no charges, and it's a dead issue at this point. So of course Turi is, I'm sure, very, very pleased with this outcome. But Jim Kitty's very suspicious. I think this is just another piece of the game puzzle. It's my belief. See, there were a number of documents. Turi basically threatened to release documents that proved Hillary Clinton was involved with this gun-running activity in Libya, back in the days of the Benghazi problems, where our embassy was attacked and the ambassador was killed, and of course there's a big controversy related to us not, and of course this is while Hillary Clinton's the head of the Department of State, and she basically the belief is that there's a lot of cover-up that has happened during this period of time. There's a lot of documentation that they were fearful of coming forward, especially during the election, that they couldn't allow to be released to the general public. So basically Turi said, hey, if you take this to trial, I'm going to share these documents with the world that proves that Hillary was involved. So wouldn't you know it, the Department of Justice said, okay, we're not going to prosecute you. That's the end of the deal. You can go home, sleep in peace. And of course now those documents will never be shared with the world. So isn't it a coincidence that the DOJ would make that decision? Actually, the trial was scheduled to begin, and get this, scheduled to begin on November 8th, which is our election day. And of course all of that documentation would have needed to be shared with the defense prior to November 8th, and of course that those documents, the DOJ concluded that they couldn't possibly allow those documents to come forward. So those are the 5 items that I believe that are all part of the game plan to make sure that they do everything in their power to make sure that Hillary Clinton is elected. And it's not because of who she's running against. It's simply because President Obama wants his legacy to continue and does not want Donald Trump, or for that matter, regardless of what Republican would have been the nominee. Let's say that the nominee would have been Rubio or Ted Cruz. They would have been doing exactly the same thing. They'd protect all of the information to make sure that Hillary Clinton is not shown to be involved with any of these activities. So I personally believe that that's the reason why all of these things have happened. And there may be another 1 or 2 events that happen before November 8th. this administration will do everything that they need to do to make sure that Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States. But I will tell you that Jim Kitty is not going to fall for their tricks. There is absolutely no way I will vote for Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump will get my vote, and I hope that everyone that evaluates what has happened over the last couple months comes to the same conclusion and you feel exactly the way I feel, in that this is all a game, and they just think that the average American voter is too stupid to figure it out. But I think and I pray that they're wrong, and that we all open our eyes and figure this out, and we do not fall for this game any longer. So that pretty much tells you what I wanted to talk about related to the Hillary Clinton's Donald Trump activities. I do want to mention to you that I will be, there's another video that I'd recommend that you listen to. I'm going to drive around the Washington, D.C. Beltway. And of course, many people would never drive on the Beltway because of the congestion and the amount of traffic that's on the Beltway. I think it might be the busiest interstate in the country, and it circles the DC metro area. And I'm going to drive the entire Beltway and have a conversation. The only thing is, during that conversation, I'm actually going to be talking about many other items, not just the election. That'll just be maybe 10 or 20% of my conversation. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of related things. I'm going to talk about the Beltway Bandits. You've all heard about, who the heck are the Beltway Bandits? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some crazy things. We're going to talk about road rage. We're going to talk about marijuana. We're going to talk about the debates. Jim Kitty has an idea of how to change the debates. I think we've all come to the conclusion that these debates are just so painful and so one-sided. The moderators that run the debates are always one-sided and favor one candidate. So Jim Kitty has some ideas related to how we can fix that. I'm also going to talk about a thing I called the Presidential 3K, or the P3K. You know how we always talk about, both the Democrats and Republicans complain about the other side not releasing medical information, medical records related to their candidate, and they suggest that their candidate isn't in very good health. So Jim Kitty has an idea, and and I call it the Presidential 3K, and I'll explain what that is. Might be a little bit too late for this election, but for future elections, I think it would make good sense. So I'll give you the details on that, and there's probably about 8 or 10 other items that I'll talk about as we go around the Beltway. So I hope you join me for that. Look for that video on YouTube Direct or on my YouTube channel or Amazon Video Direct. So this is Jim Kitty, and I will see you the next time. Thanks for listening. Hey, if you're still with me, I'm not going to end the video until I exit the turnpike, which will be in a few miles at the Breezewood exit. In the meantime, I'll let you enjoy some music from U2.
some scars from where I've been. You got eyes that can see right through me. You're not afraid of anything they've seen. I was told that I would feel nothing the first time. I don't know how these cuts heal, but in you I found a right. There is a light you can always see, and there is a world we can always be. If there is a dark, then we shouldn't doubt, and there is a light, don't let it go out. And this is a song for someone. This is a song for someone. You let me into a conversation only we could make. You're breaking into my imagination. Whatever's in there, it's yours to take. I was told I feel nothing the first time. You were slow to hear. But this could be the night. If there is a light you can always see, and there is a world we can always be. If there is a dark within and without, and there is a light, don't let it go out. And this is a song for someone. This is a song for someone. And I'm a long way from your hill, oh Calvary. And I'm a long way from where I was, where I need to be. If there is a light you can always see, and there is a world we can always be. If there is a kiss I stole from your mouth, and there is a light, don't let it go out.
Well, I hope you stuck with me. I'm actually in the town of Breezewood now, which is basically a kind of a bunch of gas stations and places to eat. And I'm actually going to continue on Interstate 70, which basically takes you through the small Breezewood town. And as you can see, you need to make a left up here to get on to Interstate 70 eastbound, which takes you towards DC and towards Baltimore, Maryland. I actually am going to make a gas stop at the Sheetz gas station up here on the right. So at this point I will end the video, and again I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks again.
Just across the river to the south side. That's a long way here. All the green and all the gold, the hurt you hide, the joy you hold, the foolish pride that gets you death, still my head, it was a war zone in my teens. I'm still standing on that street, still need an enemy. The worst ones I can't see.